Two Cambridge University scientists named Clive and Warren were trying to isolate the specific neurochemicals that cause anger and excessive aggression in humans in order to develop an inhibitor that regulates anger control issues. Warren decided that it was a waste of time to experiment on volunteers from the school for the experiment because the calm and collected Cambridge students obviously didn't have uncontrollable rage. Determined to find a subject with a true raging spirit, he sought the help of a police contact to provide them with a violent criminal as a test subject. The stakes were high and the risks even higher, but Warren believed it was the only way to achieve their goal. When the moment of truth arrived, the delivery system they had painstakingly devised faltered. The injections were too weak, threatening to thwart their progress. Warren took a daring leap and increased the dosage, hoping for a miracle. But the inhibitor failed, and the test subject started hurling towards them with malevolent intent. In a heart-pounding struggle for survival, Warren was forced to make a life-and-death decision as he summoned the courage to defend himself and Clive. Warren killed the criminal subject. Refusing to be defeated, Warren's mind raced with newfound determination. Clive's earlier suggestion of experimenting on chimpanzees resurfaced in his thoughts. It was time to embrace the wild and unpredictable, to push the boundaries of scientific discovery. As they laid the criminal to rest, a serendipitous sneeze from Clive sparked an electrifying idea. The power of their inhibitor couldn't be confined to pills or aerosols. It needed a contagion, a medium that could engulf the world in transformation. Warren's eyes glinted with newfound purpose as he delved deeper into his research. His mind fixated on a strand of the Ebola virus, a genome with untapped potential. The thrill of a breakthrough coursed through him as he envisioned the possibilities. With reckless bravery, they exposed a chimpanzee to the inhibitor using this newfound delivery system. But fate had other plans, and the inhibitor mutated within the chimpanzee, unleashing an unholy fury. The tranquil creature transformed into a relentless beast, a raging force of nature. It had the complete opposite effect of what it was supposed to do. The lines between science and chaos blurred as Warren realized the grave danger they were in. A spark of terror ignited within him. He had unwittingly created a rage virus. Amidst the dimly lit halls of the research facility, Clive's once passionate eyes now bore a haunting darkness. Consumed by his disgust at the inhumane experiments, he made a grim decision. He would no longer be a part of this madness. With a resolute heart, he bid farewell to the world of science, leaving behind a trail of shattered hopes. Later that night, he informed an animal rights eco-terrorist organization called the Animal Freedom Front about the experimenting on animals, and then shot himself. A group of relentless activists, handpicked by this Animal Freedom Front, infiltrated the facility, prepared to unleash a tempest of justice upon the captors of the chimpanzees. Amidst flickering lights and claustrophobic corridors, desperate scientist emerged from the shadows, his voice trembling with dread. He desperately tried to warn the activists of the malevolence concealed within the rage-infested chimps, but their fervor was deafening. Ignoring the warnings, they set one of the rage-filled chimps free, unleashing a cataclysmic chain reaction of terror. The activists had unknowingly unleashed a nightmare they could not control. The infected chimp, once a gentle creature, was now a vessel of unrestrained malevolence. With a sinister snarl, it launched a relentless attack, inflicting a primal fury upon its victims. A frenzied battle ensued, but against the rage's insatiable hunger, they stood no chance. In the chilling embrace of the night, the virus seeped into the core of their beings. The female activist, her eyes now ablaze with unholy fury, became an instrument of dread, her once gentle heart now consumed by unimaginable and uncontrollable putrid rage. In her wake, her comrades and the scientist fell, one by one, their innocence torn away by the insidious plague. Unbeknownst to the inhabitants of the United Kingdom, this deadly virus had been unleashed and was now spreading like wildfire, turning ordinary people into raging monsters. Soon, the entire country was to be consumed by chaos. The rage virus causes its host to permanently enter a primal state of murderous rage, with a biological imperative to spread the infection or kill the uninfected above all else. The infected are reduced to an animalistic state of permanent hostility and aggression, driving them to attack non-infected with no concern for their own safety and no moral or other inhibitions that could control their actions and behavior. The initial infected individuals become highly contagious almost instantly after exposure. As they attack and bite others, the virus spreads through the exchange of bodily fluids, particularly blood and saliva. The virus can also be transmitted through open wounds and mucous membranes. The virus has an extremely short incubation period, typically taking just seconds to a minute for the infected individuals to show symptoms. As the virus takes hold, the symptoms escalate dramatically. As the virus progresses, those infected undergo a drastic transformation, both physically and mentally. Their eyes turn bloodshot and their pupils dilate, giving them a menacing and terrifying appearance. The initial stages of the outbreak were characterized by confusion and panic. The infected individuals attacked others in a frenzied manner, triggering a domino effect of new infections. Within hours, pockets of infected individuals emerged. The streets of England, once bustling with life, were transformed into a gory battleground. Abandoned vehicles, shattered windows, and the remains of the infected victims lay scattered, painting a bleak picture of the country's descent into madness. Those who managed to escape the initial chaos faced constant threats from both the infected and desperate survivors willing to do anything to survive. The government's response to the outbreak was initially slow and disorganized, caught off guard by the virus's rapid spread. As the situation deteriorated, the government declared a state of emergency and implemented a full quarantine, sealing off the population from the outside world. The military was deployed to maintain order and enforce the quarantine. They established checkpoints and roadblocks, attempting to control the movement of both the infected and survivors. However, their efforts were met with limited success, as the infected proved to be difficult to contain. The uninfected population, trapped within the cities, faced increasing isolation and desperation. Food, water, and medical supplies quickly became scarce, leading to conflicts between survivors as they fought for dwindling resources. The fear of infection and distrust of others further fueled tensions between survivors. The military's response became increasingly brutal and callous, treating uninfected survivors as potential threats. In their desperation to maintain control, they resorted to extreme measures that often resulted in the deaths of innocent people. The military frequently clashed with packs of infected, leading to violent encounters on the street. Despite the bleak circumstances, small pockets of resistance and hope emerged as survivors banded together, providing mutual support and protection. Some groups managed to find temporary havens, but they were always at risk of being discovered by the infected or the military. The howls and screams of the infected struck fear into those who could hear their haunting cries. Their presence is enough to send survivors into panic, making escape a frantic and desperate one, adding to the terror of those trying to hide or escape. The infected's victims fight back, but their desperate struggles often prove futile against the overwhelming ferocity of their attackers. Those who fail to escape become enveloped by the infected, disappearing amidst a frenzy of violence as they are torn limb from limb. The aftermath of the infected's attacks leaves the streets littered with destruction and death. Bloodied corpses lie scattered, bearing witness to the tragic consequences of the outbreak, leaving those who remain to face a bleak and terrifying reality, creating an atmosphere of perpetual fear and tension. Finding a safe place to hide was a constant struggle. Abandoned buildings, underground tunnels, and makeshift shelters offered only temporary reprieve. Survivors often saw glimpses of them moving through the shadows, creating a sense of being constantly hunted. Hiding in cramped and dark spaces added to the sense of claustrophobia and helplessness. Being confined in small areas with limited escape routes intensified the fear of being trapped if the infected found them. Every decision to venture out for supplies or to find new hiding places was fraught with the possibility of being spotted and attacked. When survivors huddled together in hiding, they had to maintain absolute silence. The fear of attracting the infected with even a whisper or a creaking floorboard heightened the tension, making the silence agonizing. The psychological toll of hiding from the infected was immense. Survivors grappled with constant fear, trauma from witnessing brutal attacks, and the weight of knowing that survival was a precarious and uncertain reality. With the desperation to survive and the uncertainty of other survivors' intentions, trust became a rare and fragile commodity. Survivors had to be cautious about whom they allowed into their hiding places, always unsure if they could truly rely on each other. The infected's aggressive behavior and lack of rational thought led them to expend vast amounts of energy in their constant pursuit of victims. As the days turned into weeks, the infected found it increasingly difficult to find sustenance, especially in a quarantined and abandoned city. Their relentless pursuit of prey, combined with the inability to secure a stable food source, led to malnutrition and starvation. Their reckless actions resulted in numerous casualties, further diminishing their numbers. Wounds sustained during attacks festered and weakened them further, making them susceptible to infection and sepsis. The military's quarantine measures, while brutal and strict, also served to contain the infected. With no new hosts being infected, the virus's spread eventually reached a standstill. Overall, the combination of aggressive behavior, lack of self-preservation, starvation, decay, exposure to the elements, and isolation led to the infected populations dwindling over time. As their numbers decreased, they became less of a threat to the surviving uninfected population. Ultimately, the rage virus's devastating effects came to an end, not through a heroic act or a scientific breakthrough, but due to the virus's self-limiting nature and the eventual exhaustion of its infected hosts. After the infection was contained and the infected population dwindled, the government faced the daunting task of rebuilding and repopulating Britain. The cleanup and recovery efforts were massive, as the aftermath of the rage virus had left the country in ruins. The first step involved assessing the extent of the damage caused by the outbreak. Government agencies and specialized teams conducted thorough assessments of cities and towns to determine the level of contamination, the state of infrastructure, and the availability of resources. Once the infected were eradicated and the quarantine zones deemed safe, the government designated certain areas as safe zones. These zones were declared free from the virus and offered a semblance of safety for potential repopulation efforts. Survivors of the outbreak who had managed to evade infection or survived through the chaos were identified and recruited to be part of the rebuilding process. These individuals were crucial in helping the government understand the challenges faced during the outbreak and provided valuable insights for future planning. The survivors, especially those who experienced traumatic events during the outbreak, were provided with medical and psychological support. Specialized teams of doctors, therapists, and counselors worked to address the physical and emotional wounds of the survivors. The government prioritized the restoration of essential services such as electricity, water, and telecommunications. Rebuilding the infrastructure was crucial to creating a livable environment for repopulation. Efforts were being made to bring in food and supplies to the safe zones. This was particularly challenging due to the widespread devastation caused by the outbreak, but international aid and cooperation helped to provide much-needed resources. The government communicated regularly with the public, keeping them informed about the cleanup efforts, safety measures, survivors and plans for repopulation. Public awareness campaigns encouraged survivors to return to the designated safe zones and reassured them that steps were being taken to ensure their safety. The government launched initiatives to rebuild the social and economic fabric of the affected areas. This included the establishment of new businesses, job creation programs, and educational opportunities. The government implemented comprehensive long-term planning to ensure the sustainable growth and development of repopulated areas. This involved urban planning, environmental sustainability, and disaster preparedness measures to prevent future outbreaks. The rage virus was devastating due to its rapid transmission, short incubation period, loss of rational thought, and extreme aggression. It stands as a haunting reminder of civilization's fragility against a relentless and malevolent force within us. As we reflect on the devastation it caused, we must remain vigilant and committed to preventing such outbreaks in the future. By investing in research, preparedness, and global cooperation, we can strive to ensure that the nightmare of the rage virus never becomes a reality again. Our collective determination to safeguard humanity from such horrors must remain unwavering, offering a hope for a safer and more secure world.